All right, well, Mayor Wiza, welcome back to Mayor's Monday here on WSAU and WSAU.com. Everything, for the most part, everybody has survived the deep freeze.
Yeah, polar vortex, right? Whatever they're calling it.
They had a couple of names for it. A few of them aren't fit for sharing in this.
No,
capacity.
You're probably right. But you know what I called it? I called it Wisconsin winter.
Yes, that is true.
It wasn't the worst we've ever had. It stinks. And it caused some problems for people, but we all got through it, and hopefully that'll be the last bit of winter we have now for a while.
And you and your staff made a few calls in the situation to help people, that what may have been in need, maybe didn't have warm places to go down here in Stevens Point, and I think those items were pretty well received by everybody.
And I hope so. First and foremost, our goals are to make sure everyone's safe. And we did that, making sure that we had emergency warming centers open. We provided free bus rides to anyone who rode the public transportation system on our normal routes to try and get people out of the elements, get them to the warming centers if they needed to. If they absolutely had to get to a grocery store or something like that, those free bus rides, I think, were very well received. And we got some very good positive comments in that regard. We didn't shut down city government. But we did encourage our employees to use good common sense, and if they felt it was unsafe to come in, we didn't penalize them for choosing to stay safe and stay home. But our government offices were open as usual. As you know, Thursday was the last day for the first installment of people's property taxes, so City Hall was pretty busy that day, and everybody was getting their property taxes in. We made sure everybody was safe in doing that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because it wasn't just Stevens Point. I saw cities all across the region that were offering the free bus rides. Just kind of talk about that a little more and what goes into that decision, because obviously there's no such thing as a free lunch. Somebody's got to pay for it.
Right.
So that comes out of the city budget one way or another, but still. I think it's just the right thing to do for people that don't have, reliable transportation, or even people that do. I mean, look at all the batteries that were sold in the last few days.
I swear that they increased the price of batteries in the winter like 20% just because they can. But we wanted to make sure, first and foremost, during any event like this, we want to make sure that people are safe. So free bus rides is just one small thing. Now, that's lost revenue. And we also had to cut back a little bit on the routes because equipment failures with the super cold temperatures that we had, diesel fuel was gelling in some of our equipment. It was very difficult to keep things moving. So we had to cut back on the routes around campus a little bit. Fortunately, the university had canceled classes to make sure everybody there stayed safe. So the people that could come in, our bus drivers and employees, did their normal routes to the best of our ability. We asked people to check on their neighbors. Of course, the fire department is still very much working. Police department's working. Street crews were working. Those essential services kept going. But we want to make sure and remind people to clear fire hydrants for the fire department in the event of an emergency. We want to have those accessible. Checking on your neighbors, making sure that they're safe and that their water and things like that are still working. The heat. We did have a few problems with frozen pipes. Our water department was quick to take care of those. The vents for furnaces, that was a big one. The fire chief came in here and says even his vent for his furnace was starting to accumulate ice. And if those vents get plugged up, that means carbon monoxide is going to be going into your house, which creates a very dangerous situation. We also had people, of course, because it was cold, they were using heaters and various forms of, turning on the oven. You don't want to do that, but you want to stay safe. We just want to make sure everybody was aware of what conditions we had, and most importantly, checking on your friends, your family, your neighbors, those people who are maybe a little more vulnerable. But everybody got through it okay. I heard of no major incidents in the city of Stevens Point, so again, we call it winter in Wisconsin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we really, when you look at it, we haven't had anything this bad since, I think one statistic I heard was about 1996 or so. I mean,
and I heard various numbers floating around too. It wasn't a record. We didn't hit a record, as far as I know, in the city of Stevens Point any of those days.
Is there anything that you learned then throughout this whole process that you can, I guess, put in the back of your mind for future reference, and when this happens again, because, well, as you said, winter in Wisconsin, it is going to happen again.
Yeah, it will happen again. So one of the things that, County Executive Chris Holman and I had been in communication along with the Emergency Operations Center, the Sheriff's Department, Police Department, Emergency Services, talking about what can we do. And of course, there's always things that we can do better. And if there are room for improvements, we will certainly make those changes. But communication is key. Making sure that, well, for example, some of the landfills closed. Cranberry Creek closed because they couldn't keep the equipment running, is what I heard, which then forces the county to close the transfer station, which then forces all of the garbage haulers to stop hauling because they have no place to take it, which then creates problems for property owners. But those people understand that we want our employees safe, and if we got to keep our garbage for an extra week, it's not so bad. In the city, we wound up canceling garbage collection one day, I think it was last Wednesday, and we made up for it on Thursday and Friday, and I don't think anybody was working on Saturday, but if need be, we had worked on Saturday too, to make sure that the garbage collection gets picked up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always something this time of year, that's for sure. On to business that's going to be happening tonight. Mm-hmm. Again, economic development. It's a buzzword we talk about quite often because, well, your turn happens to line up with Plan Commission meetings.
Right.
And we've got a few more items that are projects that are on the burner and are starting to heat up a little bit.
We do. First of all, I want to congratulate Zach Vrewink, Mayor of Wisconsin Rapids, and the City of Wisconsin Rapids for their recent announcement. That's always good. Bringing jobs to the community is always a big thing. But those people also need places to live. And we've done very good with getting businesses here and those businesses expanding. With Skyward, Key Mobility, Century Insurance is going to be opening their new offices very soon. Those people need places to live too. So the last couple of developments we've had have, focused on the housing projects. So we have a couple that have already been approved regarding mixed use and mixed income housing, family and so forth, low income senior housing. We have a project tonight on for what we would call the Lullaby site, which has been vacant a while. That's a little bit of a mixed use, really unique development. I'm excited about this as kind of a placemaking effort to bring people and keep people in this core of the city. Excuse me. Another one we have slated tonight is an introduction of a project that we're looking at for what people would probably call the Belkey lumber site, or the former Belkey lumber site. It's actually more encompassing than that, but that's probably the landmark that most people will remember, right across the street from the former Lullaby. And this will be a single-family housing development, again, a little unique for the area, but I think it's addressing some of the desires that people have expressed in their wants for housing. Not everybody wants an apartment. Not everybody wants to rehab an older home in the core of the city. Not everybody wants a condo, but some people do. And we're trying to address all of those needs through our recent developments. And then, of course, we have another business park or business project out on the east side, which is kind of like a strip mall business development. My understanding is they've already got some tenants lined up.
Yeah, and you mentioned the variety in the housing. That's one thing that your studies have shown previously that you need. I mean, do you have any sort of target that you want to get to with all of these? Do you want to add so many more new housing units or of a certain variety? I mean, what kind of are you thinking is your end game towards this?
Well, and so we want to make sure that we have enough places to live for the people that are going to be working and living here in Stevens Point. It's important to remember, though, that one particular type of housing will not meet everyone's needs. We have student housing. We have young urban professional type housing, single family housing. People who are younger, maybe not married, looking for just kind of a neighborhood type environment. My goal is to address all of those needs to the best of our ability without oversaturating the market. Now, you're going to hear that, oh, we've got way too much student housing already, or we've got way too much this housing and that housing, and nobody wants this and nobody wants that. But I can tell you, we did the studies, and that's available on our city website. There is a variety of housing that people want, and our developers are trying to provide that type of housing.
Because that's the one thing that Mayor Zach had told me when I was down there for his announcement last week was all of the housing that we've done in the last year has really been building towards this, because that was one concern that Metallico had coming in, was there wasn't a variety of housing. Now, when you see an announcement like that come out of Wisconsin Rapids, of course, the first thing I'm sure you say, a little jealousy, of course, that you didn't get something like that. But you also say, hey, we aren't that far down the road from where this site is going to be. Stevens Point has a lot to offer some of these people that might be wanting to move in and work for them as well.
And maybe it is. Like I said, last year we had a big focus on expanding businesses, opening businesses. Well, those businesses need employees. The employees need places to live. So they have to go up incrementally. You have to do it in kind of a step to make sure that you have the jobs and you have places for the people to live. And people choose where they want to live based on those things that are not necessarily related to work. I can work almost anywhere, but what I really want is something to do when I'm not working. And we've got parks. 89% of the city has a park within a 10-minute walk of any place in the city. We've got recreational activities with the sculpture park, disc golf, mountain biking. We have a dog park. All of these things play a role in deciding where people want to live. One of the big factors is, do they have the type of housing that I want? If we don't, they're going somewhere else. So all of those facets come into play in that big picture, and that's what we're kind of doing this year, is focusing on the different types of housing that people want, so we can have room for those employees to live, and then the businesses will get those employees, and we'll get more employees, and it all grows up incrementally.
So you're not telling me that you maybe have something on the back burner that might be coming in but needs a little more housing, the way Zach told me all of last year?
We could throw a few things out there, but it's really just common sense. Anybody should be able to figure this out, and I know Mayor Zach is very savvy in that regard. We all know what we need to bring people here, and while we have dealings with all sorts of people almost every single day, we're going to continue to push forward in those directions that help us grow as a community, but grow in a way that we want to. We're not going to grow for the sake of growth. We're going to grow in the way that we want to, and pick and choose which developers we want to have in our community, which ones are good fits for the city of Stevens Point. And if they're not, we'll make it clear to those developers as well that this isn't really a good fit for the both of us. Maybe look somewhere else.
All part of the job, right?
It is, and it's a balancing act. But I think we're doing a pretty darn good job, considering we've had 4 years of near record growth, always continuing with that economic development. To the end of 2017, we had $124 million in growth, which is a very big deal, considering our average is somewhere in the $25 to $30 million range annually.
And speaking of which, one more quick question there before we let you go. The Century Insurance Building, you mentioned it, it's near completion. It's looking better every time I drive by. Do you have a possible ribbon cutting or an opening date on that yet?
They do, and I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but I do remember that the Portage County Business Council sent out an email. They are having a ribbon cutting. I want to say it's early March, but don't hold me to that one, because I don't remember exactly when the date was.
We'll fact check it.
Fantastic addition, though, coming into the city of Stevens Point with that new traffic circle and that gorgeous new Century building as a gateway through our new Division Street corridor. And we talked about this off camera too. When we have our master plans, we're working on that now currently, which was very well attended. Over 100 people showed up to the first meeting. We're going to have a couple of more. And this is kind of creating our vision for the next 10 to 20 years through Division Street and the downtown. So if people want to participate in that, keep checking stevenspoint.com to find that information.
Well, we always appreciate the time, Mayor Wiza. We'll do it again next month.
Great, thanks.